Okay, hello everybody. This is the first in a discussion series on the issues that surround and affect the current medical scenario in India. And the first episode of this discussion is focused on the danger that fake medical videos pose. We are Anupam and Pallavi. You're very welcome.
Hi, folks.
So, for context here, Dr. Anupam is a picture of Sadhvi Pragya Singh Thakur, who is now a member of parliament. She's been elected from the city of Bhopal. At the time that this article was published in the Times of India, the date is visible here on the 27th of April 2019, she was, of course, only a candidate that had been put up by the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP. At the time, she had given a very, very controversial statement saying that the consumption of cow urine or gaumutra had cured her of cancer. Some background would be necessary for those who are uninitiated in this. Sadhvi Pragya Singh Thakur is a Hindu priestess. The word Sadhvi, that is prefixed to her name, indicates that she has formally renounced the material world and has devoted herself to religion. Over the last decade, she has also been embroiled in a political criminal case. And during that time, she says that she was affected by breast cancer. And that is when she came in contact with Dr. S.S. Rajput, who has been mentioned in this newspaper report, who was her surgeon. Now, the claim that she got cured by gaumutra, the cow urine, instead of surgery, obviously sent ripples through the medical community, through the public, through the media. And what happened was a mini riot erupted on social media, in news portals, in the comment section. So here is a sample of the public perception of her statement. This is the top comment. I have on purpose deleted and obliterated most commenters' names. I do not want anybody to receive any kind of internet hatred. However, this comment is very, very indicative of what a lot of people think in the current day Indian society. It is the top comment because it received the most upvotes and the minimum or almost no dislikes. So most people agreed with this comment. This person here says that it's fine. Why are people reacting so much? She underwent 3 surgeries, and if she believes it was through Ayurveda or through cow urine, gaumutra, that she was cured, it is her belief. Why treat her so differently? Let her live her life. We all do the same. We all have our own beliefs. So bringing in now is a very interesting angle of the doctor's dilemma in the Indian context. Doctor's Dilemma, as we all may be aware, is an old play by George Bernard Shaw that focused on how a doctor's individual perceptions about who is worthy of receiving medical treatment, about who is worthy of living a life, decide who should we allocate limited medical resources to. But in the current Indian scenario, it seems like our political loyalties, our individual cultural beliefs, the obligation that we feel to hold on to culture is the dilemma of the current day practitioner of modern medicine in India. And I say this because if you focus on this slide, the surgeon, Dr. Rajput, says that yes, indeed, Sadhvi Pragya Thakur did ask him if she should take cow urine. And he replied that it is a matter of her faith. I told her there was no harm, but I cannot comment on its benefits. I told her that it was her faith, luck, and decision. It can be seen through this report that Sadhvi Pragya Thakur is a daughter of a renowned practitioner of Ayurveda and Ayurvedacharya, but when she got breast cancer, through the period of the following 11 years, she did keep in touch with this surgeon thrice. She at least went to him thrice. Now, Dr. Anupam, I would like to bring in your views at this point. What do you have to say to that?
What strikes me about this is these are the claims about pseudoscience or pseudomedicine.
Right.
With the wider dissemination of internet, what we see that the defense of these fake claims is going larger because people generally they have political or religious views. So instead of objectively evaluating the evidence, they think it is an attack on their identities. So people get people get defensive about it. Second,
Exactly.
people seek for solutions which are simplistic. I mean, everyone wants a simple solution, but as we know that diseases are complicated. It's not like plumbing, right? If you take Gomutra, you will do well. So,
Right.
but people look for simplistic solutions, and they, more often than not, look for escapist solutions. So, but this is not as we know, medicine is complicated. So this is what it is.
Okay.
So
Right.
third, these claims often are seen in we see a definite association with religion, right?
Mm.
The fake or your culture, or a culture as it was practiced, as the comment showed to us,
Right.
right?
Yes.
The
Right. Right.
comment. So that is why it becomes more difficult, because you have been culturally primed since your childhood, many innocuous things. But as we saw that the Dr. Rajput said that I told her there was no harm and I cannot comment on its benefit. So, so here he is not trying to take not an adversarial decision, but
Yes.
we often see that people replace the conventional therapy or
Right.
the evidence-based quote unquote therapy with these alternative regimens, and there the problem lies.
Absolutely. So,
Regarding Gomutra, just I have to add. So what happens in medicine, as we have seen, that people were making points for Gomutra as well. I
mhm.
believe you will be talking some papers right about that.
Right. Right. Right.
So
I would be.
I shall add these points later when I
Okay. So
get.
going ahead, I would like to mention the contrary claims that arose after Dr. Rajput and Sadhvi Pragya Thakur's statements came out. There was the comment by Dr. J.P. Lahani, who was the dean of JJ Hospital in Mumbai, who says, well, the MRI scan never showed any suspicious lesion on an initial checkup. So what is this cancer that she's talking about? There is the director of the Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai, which is the chief renowned oncology care center in the whole of India. It's very common to see people afflicted with different kinds of cancer from far-flung areas of the country thronging to TMH for their treatment. So the director of TMH, Dr. Rajendra Badve, goes on record to say that there is no proof of cow's urine, Gomutra, offering any benefit in cancer treatment. And here you see what I point out, probably a topic for a future episode, the ethics of maintaining patient confidentiality versus calling a political aspirant or a political leader's claims out in the interest of public health. I would like to play this short video that's available on the internet. It's available on a news channel called the Lallan Topes YouTube channel. So just listen to what exactly Sadhvi Pragya said. We would do a quick translation for those of you who cannot understand Hindi.
और पंचगव्य से बनी औषधियों से अपने को ठीक किया, अपना कैंसर ठीक किया है। आप कह रही हैं कि गौमूत्र खाने से आपका कैंसर चला गया? हाँ, गौमूत्र और पंचगव्य से बनी औषधि। पंचगव्य का अर्थ है गाय, गोघृत, गोदुग्ध और गौमूत्र, गोबर और दही, ऐसे 5 चीजों को मिलाकर के हम गौ पंचगव्य बनाते हैं। अब डॉक्टर लोग कहेंगे कि ये कैसी बातें कर रही हैं? ये मैं प्रत्यक्ष प्रमाण हूं इसका भी।
All right, so briefly, the translation is that the Sadhvi claims that I have cured myself of cancer using Panchagavya. The meaning of Panchagavya is it's a mixture of 5 things that are drawn from the cow, which is a bovine animal. So, it's the source of all dairy. She says that she cured herself using a mixture of clarified butter, milk, yogurt, cow urine, and cow dung. And when the reporter questions her, how will the doctors, people from the medical community react to this? So she very confidently says that, I am the proof of this. I'm the living proof of this. And I am saying this. So yes, cow urine works in treatment of cancer and I am the survivor. So you need to believe me. Anyways, going on next, we realize that the topics, the discussion around such controversial claims can be, far and wide, but we need to focus our attention. So going back to what we saw from Dr. Rajput's statements and Sadhvi Pragya's statements as well, the key themes that we can see in such issues are, as Dr. Anupam also noticed, faith, its belief, its cultural priming, nature, sort of resigning to the body and how nature itself will take course, not really believing that modern medicine can do much about it. Belief in luck, and here are things. It's the concept of I am the living proof, as we just discussed about Sadhvi Pragya's very confident claim of cow urine curing her cancer. And here is the point about your decision. I have highlighted your decision because essentially this is what Dr. Rajput said, or at least now he says he said to Pragya Thakur at the time she asked him about the consumption of cow urine during her cancer treatment. So the thing about saying your decision is that it does give the patient a sense that they are making a choice, but in the light of so much misinformation floating around, and in the light of the fact that the doctor hasn't really been able to effectively counter her belief systems, how informed is that decision? And when the decision is not informed enough, is it really a decision enough? Is it really a decision that the patient is making in complete consciousness and in good faith? So these are the key themes that we see emerging from this issue. And it's a very burning issue. Now, some context again would be helpful here. There is a reason why people like Sadhvi Pragya Thakur talk so much about cow urine, why people jump in her defense. And the reason is, again, our ancient cultural beliefs, so much so that there are people working in government medical college's pharmacology department who have written articles on the chemotherapeutic potential of cow urine. I've attached a snapshot of this. Again, I do not want anybody to be individually attacked. This is, of course, publicly available information, but I have kind of obliterated their email IDs. So this is the Journal of Intercultural Ethnopharmacology. And a subsequent line in this journal article claims that cow urine has no known toxicity. It actually says that in print. It provides no citations for it. There is not sufficient explanation of why they think cow urine is not toxic, why they are not ignoring the enteric pathogens that would probably be in there. It is just a blank statement without any substantial proof, without any citation, and without sufficient explanation. At the minimum, an explanation for a plausible biological mechanism has to be there. That is often not given. The same faculty member in the past has also published an article titled Cow Urine Distillate as a Bioenhancer. Please note the name of the journal that has published it. It's the Journal of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine. I will talk about it in a few slides. Dr. Anupam, what do you want to say about it here, especially in light of this other slide as well, which shows how people in Nigeria also have discussed about the potential of urine therapy in pediatric febrile convulsions. What do you have to say about this?
I have a few things to say about it. So how did the evidence-based medicine start? I mean, our 50% of our drugs are from same herbs, same in our allopathy, are from same herbs which other people also employ, or even animal extract, as we know that the insulin was initially derived from.
Right.
So we evaluate the clinical outcomes. Okay. So, but the other branches of medicine, I mean, they might have intuitive, like for example, for persons writing this review, I mean, there might be some chemicals in the cow urine, which might, we have been cited if some patents are there or some chemicals which might benefit. They extracted from crystallography or something like that. But the point is they have to improve the clinical outcomes, right? So, but what happens is people just read the initial report, some biomarkers or some chemicals which have been extracted. The key question is, have they improved the clinical outcome? The history of medicine is, full of medications which showed promise as a physiological state, but actually sometimes they ended up harming, as we clearly see in the CAST trial, where antiarrhythmics were given after MI and they killed the patients. Right? So the thing is, the people who discuss these potentials, as you will, they don't end up, they never almost talk about if it has shown to have a clinical outcome. I mean, a benefit in the clinical outcomes or not. And that is randomized clinical trials, randomized controlled clinical trials. So, and that is where they will never touch the topic. And because doing RCTs is hard, and proving it is like, proving the benefit is tougher as well.
It's tough as well.
So second, the other claim that you will see it frequently featuring in the Ayurvedic medicine or the alternative medicine, that it has no toxicity.
Right.
Now, cow urine, as we know, is a sterile medium, but sometimes the cow might be having UTI or something else, right?
Exactly.
Other hormones might. So we don't have. You can just wave off your hand and say that, okay, this thing has no toxicity. At least the paper doesn't cite it.
Right.
The third is, you can clearly note here the interaction between fake journals, that is new like predatory journals, and the the pseudo information. So predated journals acting as a conduit for
pseudoscience.
Pseudoscience. So it is a very important point. I mean, and other point which I frequently come in my practice, that it has no toxicity. In Hindi ki koi side effect nahi.
Exactly.
Now this is not so. As we see that in many Ayurvedic medicine, what happens is that you have these herbs and they are frequently contaminated with heavy metals. I mean, you see the case in you see like a drug like Muktavati, which is being sold on Amazon, and we all know that reserpine was derived from 1960s in that. And we have abandoned reserpine because it had many side effects like depression, and it has a very strong antihypertensive action.
Yes,
I've seen many patients in my practice who had bradycardia, depression, taking Muktavati, but people say, but we are told it has no side effects, and it is being sold on Amazon. I mean, I was really astonished.
Right.
And these are medicines which are, Muktavati is manufactured by probably Patanjali or some big company.
Right.
Now the other point is the toxicity part. The smaller companies, they trying to, cut their cost, and they don't, distill or purify their product. They have many toxicities. One of my relatives, she was using some bhasm or churn for increasing the breast milk for lactation, and she developed hypothyroidism. I mean, and it was so. So these, my point is, these often these bhasm or churns are mixed with heavy metals, and we see many toxicities in pre-anesthetic checkups. We will have liver injuries, kidney injuries, all that. They are not purified. So this toxicity is the most dangerous bit.
Yes.
And the final point is the placebo. Okay.
Exactly.
It is your belief. The thing is, how I approach the patients in my practice is, I tell, okay, this is the medicine which has been shown regarding my medicine. I mark that particular medicine. I tell them that this medicine does work. Please don't change it. Others can have benefit, but it can have side effects, as I have seen, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
let go of your notion that it doesn't have side
Side
effects.
effects. This is a
Okay.
very deeply entrenched belief I have felt
Yeah.
that, it's no. Ayurveda and homeopathy have no side effects is a very deeply entrenched belief, and people will defend it no matter what. This is what I have certainly noted.
Homeopathy is a different beast compared to Ayurveda. Ayurveda is properly, we use drugs which are active. I mean, it is a good thing that if someone shows that they
Right.
work in randomized controlled trial, I would be more than happy. After all, we see that artesunate was derived from traditional Chinese medicine approaches, and the researcher has won a Nobel Prize. But
Yes.
then you have to hold the conventional traditional medicine against the randomized controlled trial standards, not to inferior ones, or just a way
Exactly.
that it has been used for 1,000 years, and so we can, we don't need to do RCTs.
At the
Okay.
minimum, what is ancient should also hold up to our modern understanding of science. We should also be able to see what it is doing, like we are able to with the other medicines that modern
Yes.
medicine approves of. At the minimum, that should happen.
And
Nothing.
at the very minimum, the government should ensure that even the ancient medicines are sold at least in a pure form in India, because in many Western countries have banned these drugs,
Right.
but in India they are freely available.
Exactly. So the other point, as you mentioned about the adulteration with heavy metals, what I have often come across and read is that a lot of these herbal medications are also mixed with steroids. To of course, mixing with steroids will of course help people calm down a lot of symptoms. So again, this is again another very dangerous practice that is being carried
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, there have been analysis, for example, in seizure medication, they used to do phenobarb. They
Oh my
used to
God.
add phenobarb, or in
Right.
asthma
Mm.
treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So what is this is the standard practice the quacks. I mean,
Yeah.
the quacks use in India. So unregistered medical doctors, they would give a steroids shot so that patient feels temporarily better,
Right.
and then they would give you an incomplete course of antibiotics. So this
Right.
is a standard approach.
Yes.
And clearly the fake, the pseudo medicine people who are also, going for that slice of pie, either for fame or for money, they also are applying the same approaches.
Exactly. So going back to Dr. Rajput's statement, what would you say? Like if a patient approaches you especially with that kind of overt religious affiliation, a sadhvi, a priestess says, my father was a practitioner of Ayurveda, I want to take gomutra, I want to take cow urine, I know I have cancer. How would you approach it? Would you go on to say it has no harm?
This is how I say, this is how I generally approach it. Many patients of diabetes, hypertension, they
Mm-hmm.
come to me. This is how I approach it. I give them conventional medicines,
Right.
mark the medicine which is the most important one,
Right.
give them medicines, tell them that even I believe I am a conservative practitioner by heart.
Mm-hmm.
But then I tell them that, look, I am writing you less medicines, and these are the minimum medicines. I don't give him an overdose of medicine, because many people get afraid by that, right?
Okay.
And
Right.
even allopathic, we tend to abuse medicines, right? We should
Mm-hmm.
give minimal and effective therapy. At least this is what my belief is.
Yes.
But then I also explain to them, look, you at this point you are believing that you are taking this drug, so okay, that works for you, but that I have seen people who have had these side effects, so it is not without side effects. And please never ever stop the medicine which has been proved, that is the medicine which I have marked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in the second visit, I call them for a second visit, and second visit I evaluate the rapport I have built with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go on to, if they are still taking, then I tell them that, okay, this has side effects, or you should stop it. But in my practice, nobody has even taken gomutra, but they use alternative medicines
Medicine.
for diabetes, like
Right.
Karela juice, etc.
Bit
Now,
of old
my
juice.
point is about the adulteration bit. I explicitly warn them about adulteration bit, but generally I do it in the second visit. It's also a function of rapport. What is the point? I mean, patient
Yeah.
might not take your medicine as well as that medicine, but eventually I explain the things to him.
So it's a graduated approach that you approve of. Don't load the
Yes,
patient right away. But yes, but don't
I
just
mean,
yeah,
yes. I mean, just like on internet, if someone has a different, as you will see, right?
right,
If someone has a widely held belief, you cannot change their beliefs by widely shouting at them.
exactly,
You might drive them away. So that is no point of changing the behavior. But at the same time, you have to change the behavior. Yes, without being excessively politically correct.
exactly. So again, this is the slide that sums up what we've been discussing. That this tussle of fake news, this whole deluge of fake medical videos, is somewhere also a tussle, a fight, and a conflict between modern medicine and traditional belief systems. People abide by traditions because they have been passed down to them since thousands of years. So, well, because they are continuing, because they are old, there it- they would be right is the concept that they hold. Whereas modern medicine is something that doesn't completely make sense to them because they don't understand how it works. It's possibly this is the conflict that lies at the heart of this whole fake medical video scenario, the whole pseudoscience scenario. Remember that I mentioned a few slides ago about a faculty in a government medical college who has conducted or who has at least written articles in defense of cow urine and its chemotherapeutic potential, and has published in this journal called the Journal of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine. Dr. Anupam just made a very instructive point about the rise of fake journals, predatory journals, and their role as a conduit of pseudoscience. So this journal, at least on their Wikipedia page, claims that it is funded by Government of India's Department of Ayush, Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani, and Unani Siddha, and Homeopathy medicine. There is no citation for this, but well, people do refer to Wikipedia, so I have just presented this information. Because we mentioned Ayush, some more information about it would be in order. Ministry of Ayush is basically an acronym for A for Ayurveda, Y for Yoga, U for Unani, S for Siddha, and H for Homeopathy. The government of India, as you can see by its emblem here, the famous Sarnath emblem, it has legitimized alternative medicine in a way in India. It is a full-scale ministry now, and much to my surprise, when I was preparing for this presentation, I discovered that it is not limited to any one particular party, political party being in power, any one particular ideology ruling the discourse of the day. This has been going on for quite a long time. It's a conflict that the modern nation state, the burden the modern nation state that India is, feels, in as far as it thinks of itself as a custodian of the ancient civilization that it has inherited. So this is a conflict not only in the people's minds of conflict between modern science and traditional beliefs. This is also a conflict that the Union of India faces as regards to its role as a modern day nation state and as a custodian of the ancient civilization that India was. As you can see here, that it was first in March 1995 that the Department of Indian System of Medicine and Homeopathy was set up. In 2003, it was renamed as the Department of Ayush, and in 2014, it was elevated to the level of a full-scale ministry. So this is essentially reflective of the interdependent relationship that society and government in democratic setups have. Majoritarian democratic governments often respond to the populist demands of the day. These days, at least in India, the focus is on going back to the ancient Indian roots, to Indic roots, to our old civilizational roots, and hence there is this renewed emphasis on Ayush, Ayurveda, Unani medicine, and the like. And responding to that populist pressure, the government often will put in place policies and mechanisms to respond to that demand, to actually supplicate that demand. And this cycle, this positive feedback mechanism, then goes on often in perpetuity. So the society places demands on the government, and by responding to those demands, the government often entrenches even further deeply those, those old beliefs that often do not hold up to standards of modern science. As an example of this policy, here is a slide, a snapshot of the draft of the new education policy that had been put out in December 2018. The same government has been voted back to power. Education policy probably does not have much role in the popular electorate's decision-making process. However, this slide is again very instructive because at the government level, you see what their priorities or their thought process is. I have highlighted lines that say that we need to focus on different systems of medicine and encourage bridging across systems. It also notes that the country has a pluralistic healthcare legacy. So there is this pressure, the constant pressure that the government feels to, keep these alternative medicines, the systems in vogue. They must not die out. They must always be around is a pressure that government clearly feels and probably also believes it. But again, we want to narrow our focus, and hence the spotlight slide is really helpful. We'll focus today on how the fake medical video scenarios affect HIV and AIDS. HIV and AIDS, when you compare it to tuberculosis, when you compare it to other diseases affecting Indian population, is not that big of an issue because it affects a very small percentage of the entire population. But because the population is so huge that the absolute number of patients affected by HIV and AIDS goes up to 2.1 million, and this number effectively makes India the third largest AIDS population, as the country that houses the third largest AIDS population, HIV AIDS population in the world. I am putting out screen grabs here. Dr. Anupam, your comments will soon be very, very welcome because I am aware that you know of this person who has been mentioned here, Biswaroop, very well. So this is a screen grab of a YouTube video that talks of how AIDS and HIV is a scam. Note my words, this video claims that HIV and AIDS are not diseases, these are scams. The source of this video is said to be a book by one Dr. Biswaroop Roy Chaudhary. The person who's made this video at the very beginning lays out a very, morally high disclaimer that he has not taken any money from Indian Medical Association or FDA to make this video. This is a very key point to note in this video. Because the belief that doctors are scamsters out to fleece patients of their money is so deeply entrenched again in the Indian mind, is so deeply entrenched in society today, that this person, simply by saying that he has not taken any money from anywhere, automatically becomes the go-to person for people who are watching him. He becomes more trustworthy for them rather than a certified medical practitioner. A Google search in doctor in quote unquote, Biswaroop Roy Chaudhary's name will throw up a lot of interesting results. The results should be self-explanatory. This person claims to be a PhD in diabetes reversal. I don't know what that is. Do you know about it, Dr. Anupam?
Yes, I mean, these people, I mean, this is pseudoscience. So these basically, they want, there's some, they actually write some kind of diet advices. He also doubles up as a nutritionist. So I agree that some form, if you have a good, if your diet is proper, you can actually reverse some part of the type 2 diabetes, as it is well known in medicine. But this guy, tends to inflate his claims.
Right. And he often goes on to say that diabetes doesn't exist, that there's nothing called blood glucose, and there's nothing called AIDS. So he's a...
Obviously, and you see, this is the, template that these guys borrow.
Yes.
They would, use one feature of, science. They do quote science. So some part of their, their emphasis is correct, but then they drive they gain a window into the discourse, scientific discourse, and then they, start peddling their own pseudo claims.
So it's a mixture of correct scientific information and very fake information.
So
That
this is what it sells, because it's so this is what you will drop something. You will start with some truth, home truth, and then you will drop a bunch of lies in between, and then some truth. This is what sells. Yes.
So it's very difficult to actually pinpoint where these guys are going wrong or where they are lying to the people, and it's also very difficult to I think nab them because of this mixture that they put out in public of correct and incorrect.
Except to a person who studies evidence, yes.
Exactly, right. Is there anything called Indo-Vietnam Medical Board that you're aware of? I am not aware of it. Are you aware of it?
Yeah, there are many such alternative medical boards like Socialist Medical Board, but they're not valid in India.
Okay.
This guy, Dhruv Rai Chaudhary, has some degree in nutrition. He has done course, the correspondence course, and it doubles up from that. And these certificates are not valid in India.
Okay.
So I think he doubles up as nutritionist, and then he gets to peddle his claims.
Okay. So here is another screen grab from the YouTube video that we were talking about. This narrative, the narrative that accompanies the slide, is basically saying that doctors say these are the methods of AIDS transmission. The 6 methods that he lists out here, the narrator claims are the doctor's claims about AIDS transmission, and then he says that they are all wrong. Now, it is again a very interesting point to note that this is a mixture of correct information and incorrect information. Indeed, AIDS transmission is known by sexual contact. It is known by blood transfusion. And this guy says that this information is wrong. It does not spread that way. And then he mixes it up with, using others' toilets. Of course, I don't think AIDS would spread that way. It's not a known method. But he is here catering to a cultural stereotype. So it's a very interesting and a very cleverly done mixture of correct information and incorrect information that these people often use. The slides will be done very professionally. The slides actually look very attractive, but it's very difficult to nab them. He also mentions Luc Montagnier in the video somewhere. This is a very interesting way of twisting information. Now, Luc Montagnier is a French scientist who discovered the human immunodeficiency virus and won a Nobel Prize for it. But of late, he's also gained a lot of notoriety because he's now joined the anti-vaxxer movement. The British Medical Journal, as recently as 2018, noted that a conference in Italy had received a lot of criticism because it allowed such anti-vaxxers to speak. And Luc Montagnier has been noted to be an anti-vaxxer in the British Medical Journal article too. So going back to this YouTube video that we're talking about, by mentioning Luc Montagnier and HIV together, this person certainly gains some credibility because yes, indeed, if you were to do a random Google search and you're not very savvy about reading English or cannot read medical literature very well, then you would think that, of course, this is correct. HIV and Luc Montagnier's names often show up together. And then it's also very likely that you will come across his claims that vaccines don't work and that vaccines cause autism, which is a very, it's a totally discredited theory now. So you would also gain a sense that now this guy is saying no to something that science promotes. It's very easy for the lay person to mix all these bits of information together and believe what the narrator here says, which is that the person who discovered the human immunodeficiency virus now says that, yeah, it was a mistake and it doesn't really exist. So this is such a clever way of doing it that it is very hard to explain to the medically lay people why this is wrong, how this is an absolute lie. And it's very difficult to take these videos down away from the internet either. This stays, the permanence of the internet is there. What do you have to say about this, Dr. Vanapam?
My observations regarding it is we often see that the people, apart from the fake pseudoscience journals, other people There are two kind of people who drive these fake news. One are the experts who are experts in A, but then they double up as experts in Z.
Right.
Right. So, and I mean, that reminds me also of the journalists, but okay, on social media. But, so you would see these guys. So Luke Montagner, okay, so now he's expert in HIV now, but he's now on anti-vaccine camp.
Right.
So you would see many people like these. I mean, they would give you, so the first thing people should Google is, has he done any work on this?
Right.
So, and that is the fundamental in a good journal, right? And has been highly cited. Okay. So that is one way to, see through these guys. Or Dr. Oz in USA.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He has now doubled up from surgeon to nutritionist. So these are the guys who have been doing their stuff. So, and even Dr. Atkins, who advised his diet, but then he had 3 heart attacks and he hid it before his death. So these are all possible. Other people are, some people in the field, we must never forget the anti-vaccine campaign was driven by Wakefield, right?
Right.
Some people have gone wrong. Now it is entirely possible that, the person you are calling rogue now are revolutionaries. I mean, who know that once a time of in 1975, 76, when some guy who talked about beta blockers in CHF, he was called an element gone rogue, right? But then he eventually proved to be right. Then these claims have always to be judged by evidence, right?
Right.
So you can't cite a single study, or ideally it should, and any effectiveness claims should be judged by randomized controlled trials, while as we know by observational studies we can judge the harm, right? In normal cohorts. That is the standard. Now these guys use some cohorts to say some studies they will pick them up and they will cite. For example, in India we have B.M. Hegde. Now he was a cardiologist. Now he tells that all stents are useless. Now you must notice what is happening here. So people get fed up of financial collusions of mainstream medicine. This is actually right. Many doctors tend to overuse medicines. Many doctors overprescribe stuff. Medicine has become very costly. So these guys actually, there's validity in their claim that that I don't have financial conflicts, but then they use this as a stepping tool to further their own agenda, that is either intellectual or financial benefits.
Right.
Third point I just have to make about the tradition part you gave.
Yeah.
That these guys tend to advance tradition that should be preserved in situ. Right? But we must understand that all our medicines have been coming from the same tradition. Most of our medicines are derived from the same herbs. But the tradition should be a living one. It should be an evolving one. While the Ayush practitioners, they like to, the medicine as it was practiced 1,000 years back.
Yes.
So it shouldn't be so.
They don't. Yes, exactly. It's about keeping up with.
The reinvention part is missing.
Yes. It's about keeping up with the times, keeping up with the current day standards. What is ancient should also be proven by today's standards. That's the key point that we are reaching here.
Yes.
So we've been through this. Now, another very interesting commentary is provided by taking a look at the comments that are posted below this this YouTube video that I just showed screen grabs of. The title is HIV/AIDS is the greatest lie of the 21st century. You can see the stupendous number of views that this video has received, the number of likes that this has received. It far outnumbers the number of dislikes that are there. You can see the huge number of subscribers that this person has. And again, very reflective of the thought process of the general public is the top comment here. It's in Hindi. I'll just read it out. He says, ये डॉक्टर साहब कोई अनोखा काम नहीं कर दिए हैं. देखने का शौक है तो राजीव दीक्षित जी ने बहुत सालों पहले यही कह दिया था कि HIV AIDS कोई बीमारी नहीं होती. Briefly, this means that Vishwaroop, the person who has made this video, isn't telling anything new. Rajiv Dikshit, I will tell everybody who he was in a few moments from now. Rajiv Dixit had discussed this a long time ago. He had told us all a long time ago that HIV/AIDS is nothing. It's no illness. It's just a scam. Now, here is who Rajiv Dixit was. Again, some context would be good. He was murdered a few years ago, I believe, but in his heyday, in the prime of his life, he was a very popular speaker in at least the Hindi heartland, in the Hindi speaking areas of India. He was a very popular figure. One can call him a proponent of the political Hindu nationalism, Hindutva, as we now know. I don't know if he was officially affiliated with RSS, VHP, or any of the Hindu nationalist groups or not, but he certainly spoke language that seemed common with them. I will play this video, hear what he says. I will briefly translate it for those who don't understand Hindi.
आपको मिले तो आप भी पढ़िए, क्योंकि उसमें उन्होंने इतनी लॉजिकल बातें कही हैं जिनको पढ़कर ऐसा समझ में आता है कि एड्स कोई बीमारी नहीं है, वो खाम का एक हवा खड़ा किया गया है कंडोम स्टेज। और ये पुस्तक पढ़ने के बाद मैं 3 प्रोफेसर से मिल चुका हूँ जो मेडिकल कॉलेज में काम करते हैं। एक तो प्रिंसिपल है भोपाल मेडिकल कॉलेज के, वो बोलते हैं, और एक नागपुर मेडिकल कॉलेज के प्रिंसिपल, दोनों बोलते हैं कि ये सच में एक धोखा है, ये वास्तव में कोई बीमारी नहीं।
So this person here has said that he's met doctors who teach in Bhopal Medical College and another medical college that he's mentioned, that HIV/AIDS is not a disease, it is a scam, and it has been invented to increase condom sales. He was a very popular speaker. I am reinstating this point repeatedly because he really commanded a lot of influence among the general masses in northern India, at least. Here is another video where this person repeats this point, and I'm playing this basically to show who he is accompanied by, who is nodding his head in agreement with Rajiv Dixit's claims that AIDS doesn't exist, it's merely a scam.
व्यापार में प्रचार होना चाहिए, उसके लिए एड्स का बहाना लिया है, और एड्स का बहाना लेकर टीवी पर, अखबारों में, सिनेमा में, पत्रिकाओं में, हर जगह वो विज्ञापन दे दे के 21 साल है। आप ये नहीं बताते हैं कि अपने ऊपर संयम रखो, ये नहीं बताते हैं कि संयम से जीवन बिताओ, ये नहीं बताते हैं कि अपने पति और पत्नी के साथ वफादारी निभाओ। वो कहते हैं कुछ भी करो, कंडोम का इस्तेमाल करो। इसका दुष्परिणाम पता है क्या हुआ है? मात्र 15 साल में इस देश में 100 करोड़ कंडोम हर साल बिकने लगे हैं। 15 साल पहले बिकने वाले कंडोम की संख्या हजारों में भी नहीं थी। 100 करोड़ कंडोम हर साल बिक रहे हैं, और अंधाधुंध विदेशी कंपनियां इस धंधे में उतर पड़ी हैं। करीब 20 बड़ी विदेशी कंपनियां हैं, अमेरिका की, कुछ जापान की, कुछ मलेशिया की, फ्रांस की, वो इस देश में इसी धंधे में उतरी हुई है। और उनका टारगेट क्या है? उनका टारगेट है कि 100 करोड़ कंडोम एक साल में नहीं, एक दिन में बिकने चाहिए, ये उनका लक्ष्य। और उसके लिए रात दिन वो हिंदुस्तानी नौजवानों को बहलाकर, फुसलाकर, गलत रास्ते पर ले जाकर ऐसी जगह खड़ा कर रहे हैं।
I'll pause the video here. So this person who is sitting next to the speaker, Rajiv Dixit, we are talking about, is currently the owner of the group, the brand that Dr. Anupam mentioned a few minutes ago, Patanjali. He's Baba Ramdev. And I think it's become the biggest FMCG company, Patanjali. It's outdone every other company in small retail goods. Am I right, Dr. Anupam? I think I have some idea about it.
First for a second, yeah, it was gaining pretty fast. Now it has plateaued, but still, it's a big name. Yes.
It's a big name. So this person, this person in saffron robes who's sitting here is again, nodding his head in agreement, and now commands a huge share of the Indian market, the retail market, and also a huge space in the Indian minds. Whatever he says, a lot of people will believe him. And here he is agreeing that AIDS is merely a scam meant to increase condom sales. I have another screen grab of this thing called Hindu Leaders Caucus on HIV and AIDS. It's called Faith in Action. It's again easily available on YouTube. A simple Google search will lead you here. In this conference, so to say, we see the founder of the Art of Living Foundation, Sri Ravi Shankar, again, someone who commands a lot of influence, not only in the rural areas, but also in the urban and more savvy areas of India. He here has also spoken on the same lines of, the need being more to uphold morality. That's basically the theme of that you see in all of the religious opposition to HIV and AIDS. That a lot of these people will be very opposed to modern methods of contraception, barrier contraception, because they look at it as an intervention, as an interference in religion, as they look at it as an attack on morality that religion expects people to uphold. What are your comments on that, Dr. Anupam?
As you would notice, that since HIV was associated with sex, so, and while it was not so, this association crept into, as you can see in Hindu religious
Right.
icons, by association with Christian leaders. When the AIDS epidemic broke out in USA, so even you see that these ideas were promulgated there in 80s or 90s, HIV denialism, and it has seeped in from there. Now this Rup Roy Chaudhary, which you are talking about, he frequently participates in many Christian evangelical associations. He gives Narula in Punjab.
Right.
So you see that, these are all these the people of faith, so-called faith. So they collude with it. They have common set of thoughts. And you might also see how, apart from these clearly religious Hindu religious elements, you have the Christian evangelists who use it for conversion as well, right?
Yes, exactly.
For example, you will do a miracle, and you see a lot of videos on the YouTube. For example, people would cite a prayer, and then the paralysis would be cured and everything. So you'd know that this has all, they have the roots in the sex or the miracle part. It has some basis in Christian theology because it has derived, but and all religions are borrowing from each other, right? All actually, not religion, but the religious leaders who want to go, gain ground. For example, Ramdev. Okay, he's a good exponent of yoga. So he teaches yoga to many people. But then he is an expert in A, now dabbling as an expert in Z, that is healthcare, right?
Right.
And I suspect that these guys like Rajiv Dikshit and Vishwarup, now what are they? And they were engineers. Now then they started dabbling in, like Vishwarup Raj Chaudhary became a memory expert and he was writing self-help books. And now probably he wants to get a share of the healthcare pie. That is where the next market was. And then he jumped into that. Rajiv Dikshit, again, he was an engineer. The career probably was not working out. And then he became interested in health. Okay, yoga, you teach yoga, well and good. 2 points. Some yoga has some definite benefits in physical rehabilitation. But then they want to go beyond their expertise, and then they start selling all the, because basically anything जो भी बिकता है सच और झूठ को जाके बेचो तो वो ज्यादा बिकता है. That is the phrase in Hindi.
Yes.
So this is how they they use them to evaluate to increase their sphere of influence.
This is kind of religious entrepreneurial attitude, right? This is religious entrepreneurialism in action, I think.
Yes, because people, I sincerely doubt any people who would be actually HIV. I mean, most of the people who are actually even commenting below, most of them would go and seek cure from an allopathy, but they find, okay, this is what I used to say. Tradition is great. So I was thinking on the same lines, and now I have found another person who speaks the same language on the internet. So you see that Rajiv Dixit and Biswarup Roy Chaudhary, I mean, they might have different religious ideas, but then they conquer on the same goal, and they find followers as well who said, okay, I used to think it that way, but no one said it. And so now someone on the internet is saying it and people are liking it. So that is how fake news typically, caters to the prejudice and it becomes viral.
They find an audience very easily on the internet. That's what happens.
And the club grows when people say, okay, there are other people behaving, thinking on these lines as well. I never knew them previously. I thought I was the only loony guy. So,
yeah.
Okay.
So now you have you now have a loony people's club, and so their opinions must be
maybe
right.
we are right, and the sane ones, who are the sane ones? I mean, maybe they are the loony ones. So this is the thought, the line of thought. Yes.
I'd now like to bring in a very nice short documentary that the Daily Opinion had put out in 2016. It featured Dr. Suniti Solomon, who had diagnosed the first case of HIV positive sex workers in Chennai back in 86, I think, in India. Or was it 88? I'm not sure. But this was a very nicely done documentary. And much to my chagrin, and probably, by now I should probably become accustomed to it, I found another comment below this video, which says, cow urine also cures HIV virus. Like, it just does it away. It throws it out of your system. So this panache of ancient India needs to be known to the world if these guys are so confident about it. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that this is a very pervasive sentiment, and it's coming out in the internet very clearly. People believe that ancient remedies or ancient things, ancient ideas, cow urine and the like, can cure everything, every ailment that modern medicine is now discovering. Going back to the original video by Vishwaroop, I found another comment by this handle YouTube channel called TMCO Ayurvedic Dawakhana. He goes one step ahead of saying, well, not only Vishwaroop Roy Chaudhary and not only Rajiv Dixit, the Vedas and the Quran Sharif have already proven that AIDS is a scam. It doesn't exist. This is a particularly interesting comment because this handle, Tamko Ayurvedic Dawakhana, puts out a lot of fake videos himself. This handle is run by someone called Talib, I think, and he puts out a lot of pseudoscience videos claiming to cure everything from cataract, diabetes, and also HIV/AIDS with this thing called cupping. He has spelled a lot of things wrong in his description, so I've just corrected them. He says that the patient after cupping may feel giddy for a while till the virus exits out of the body completely. And cupping, he's also mentioned it in conjunction with something called hijama. What hijama is, we'll see in a bit. Now, this is another screen grab from a video by the same guy where he's demonstrated what cupping is. This is what it looks like. This is the person himself. One key thing to note here is that a lot of these fake YouTubers, a lot of the pseudoscience YouTubers dress more professionally and speak more professionally than their target audience. This is to say that they know their audience really well. They know what will sell. And to increase their acceptability, to put out evidence of their credibility, this person has hung a stethoscope around his neck. You can see there are posters of organ systems behind him, not really relevant to what he's talking about. But most people who would go to a doctor's clinic would see some kind of a human skeleton or, a small model that is relevant to the body, some particular system that the physician specializes in. So these are the posters, these pictures, the stethoscope. These are symbols that an average person, a medically lay person, associates a physician with. And because this YouTuber has those symbols present, he should be trustworthy. This is the overlying theme here. Anyways, going back again, do you have any comments to make here, Dr. Anupam?
So this, I mean, again, so this is like, the people, they're saying they're giving therapy for HIV, cancer. As we know that these, sometimes people actually might be misled. So I have seen people who have delayed therapy
Right.
for coronary artery disease because they have believed in a fake YouTube video. People are having unstable angina, heart attacks, and yet they are taking chelation therapies. Or even as we know that Steve Jobs delayed his therapy of pancreatic cancer because he was seeking alternate therapies. So these guys do a lot of harm. As in, sometimes even if the people are taking these therapies as a placebo, okay, that might be, that is still not harming. But people delay therapy, or these therapies assume prominence, and then they can be really harmful. And these guys are, I mean, I think they should be punished. There should be some. If I generally don't approve of banning the internet, but
Right.
at least healthcare, they are doing a lot of harm. Just like
Harm, yeah.
smoking, we have banned
Right.
smoking in public space. So at the very least, health, there should be some persons, or we should down like these comments, even if we cannot ban them. So
Right.
YouTube should have some provision so that, okay, the video can be there, but she should be down like, because then there should be a authenticity or truth score in the comments which they are. Because if you Google the YouTube videos, so a lot of them, almost 30 to 40% of them on a topic, are about fake news. This is my empirical observation.
No, this is a very good point. An authenticity score or truth score accompanying every video. It's a very good recommendation actually. This should be followed.
At least on the claims. I
Yes.
mean, okay, so obviously no one has the time to see, but in the claims which have 32, which are beyond a critical mass, right? For
Right.
example, about 2,000, 3,000 views, the YouTube must employ something, at
Right.
least regarding claims they are making.
No, this is a very important point, especially the factor about delaying the correct and proven modern medical treatment by going behind alternative treatments. It's a real harm. It increases mortality. It often pushes people into absolute medical bankruptcy, because towards the end, treatment also gets more complicated and more expensive. So these guys certainly are doing a lot of harm. In the next slide here, we see how AIDS denialism is neither unique to India nor is it unprecedented. As Dr. Anupam had very correctly noted, that a lot of these ideas are borrowed from what goes on in the Western world. This is a cartoon by Zapiro. It's available on the website. Zapiro has a website of its own, and the cartoon selections are excellent. You must check them out. This is a cartoon that depicts how the South African president Thabo Mbeki, I think that's how his name is pronounced, Thabo Mbeki's AIDS denialism reflected in his policy, which restricted access to antiretrovirals in South Africa. It unleashed horror in that country on this account. It became so bad that this was an electoral issue, and Mbeki was eventually voted out of power, and Zuma was voted to power. AIDS denialism and the policies that followed AIDS denialism were a major electoral issue that time in South Africa. So here is a short summary that accompanies this cartoon. In South Africa, HIV/AIDS denialism had a significant and entirely negative impact. The president believed that HIV does not cause AIDS, and he organized a presidential advisory panel regarding HIV/AIDS, which included a lot of scientists who were AIDS denialists. So he instituted policies that denied ARVs to AIDS patients, and it led to a substantial and significant increase in the number of AIDS-related deaths in the country at that time. It was an absolute horror, as I said. So it's not, again, limited to only one country or only one continent. Here is an article that mentions an AIDS denialist online community on Russian social networking service. So we've seen India, we've seen Russia, we've seen South Africa, and for sure there are cases in America itself where AIDS denialists have actually been given a lot of mainstream media space. They have been interviewed on television. Now, here are some facts. Statistics of HIV and AIDS. Between 2010 and 2017 in India, the new infections due to HIV declined by 27%, and AIDS-related deaths also declined by 56%. However, in 2017, we see an uptick, an increase in infections from 80,000 to 88,000, and an increase in number of deaths from 62,000 to 69,000. Now, of course, it's hard to pinpoint right away what is it that's causing this uptick, this increase in deaths and incidence of newer infections. But it is very hard to ignore the role and the devastating role that such fake videos can play in increasing incidence of newer infections and increasing in rates of AIDS-related deaths. It's very hard to ignore the huge role that these videos play, probably, because the scale of spread is so fast and so wide. It's very easy to share any video from YouTube on WhatsApp or any other social media service. There are no punishments, there is no ramification, and there is no accountability for sharing a fake medical video. If a person follows fake advice that he saw off of a WhatsApp video or on YouTube, and his medical course goes so downhill that it becomes an unsalvageable case, at that point there is no accountability for the person who had shared the video in the first place. So this is a very dangerous situation that's erupting, and it may soon go out of our hands. Here are further more points in the Indian context. 60% of India's HIV affected population lives in rural areas. Most people in rural areas do not have access to literacy, let alone scientific literacy. It will be very difficult for them to separate the lies from the truth in such fake medical videos. As we have noted, such videos are often a very cleverly done mixture of truth, half-truths, and absolute falsehoods. It will be very difficult for someone who does not have, the scientific mind or scientific knowledge to see through them. Again, a very major point of concern is that married women are now increasingly at risk in India, and women living with AIDS get infected with HIV through two modes. Either it is through sex work, sex workers, and brothels, and the like, or it is through monogamous sexual relationship with a husband who engaged in unsafe sex outside of marriage. Here is a key feature here. Although AIDS was discovered first in homosexual males in the United States, in India, the main mode of transmission is the heterosexual contact. 87% new cases are due to heterosexual contact. So in light of all this, the menace of fake medical videos becomes even higher, because women face even more discrimination and even more difficulty in accessing healthcare resources. Their literacy levels, their awareness levels are often poorer. They face difficulty in speaking up for themselves. They will often, because of, again, a cultural stereotype, they will tolerate a lot of their conditions for much longer before seeking healthcare of any kind. So it's very important to distinguish between fake news and real medical facts. I really like this slide because of the different directions, the clear opposition that it shows between what's fake and what's true. Dr. Anupam, do you have anything to add at this point, or should we move ahead?
My point of contention is, instead of blaming these peddlers alone, the responsibility of it lies with the guys of medicine who have gone rogue, because clearly these people are taking arguments from them, and they use their arguments to inflate, to mix them with untruths. Right. I'm not saying that science should be politically correct, right, but science should have a certain level of standard. We don't need more of science; we need better science. The less research should be done. but it should be done, it should be held to a standard. But with publish or perish culture, what has happened is you publish a lot, you publish false positive findings as well, then they are picked, and then they are disseminated. So, but then these guys are responsible as well.
Right.
Second point, despite being proven wrong in a conclusive study, many of these, some people who have gone wrong, they go on peddling their beliefs. So that leads me to think that intellectual dishonesty is as worse or probably worse than
Exactly. It's more dangerous.
dishonesty. Yes.
It's more dangerous because they can also cover it up very well. They are
Yes.
that suave and they are that
And they
polished.
appeal by moral exhibitionism that we are financially honest, like the Surup Roy Chaudhary.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
It uses the arguments of the people, false positive findings or findings which have appeared once in a blue moon, to peddle these theories of their own.
So again, here is the feature of accountability, the point about accountability that we discussed. People who have gone rogue, you mentioned Dr. Hegde, we talked about Luc Montagnier. There is no punishment for them, and there is very little one can do to people who go rogue. That's a major problem.
Yes.
Because we mentioned cupping, here are a few slides talking more about cupping itself. So I will play this video. It's not a very long video. It's about an anesthesiologist, Dr. Anna Kelly, who now practices pain medicine, and she's here favoring cupping, but it is not for HIV/AIDS. It is for pain medicine. I will play it here. I'll pause the video here. As we see, this again, is a case where traditional older systems of medicine are being used to fill a gap that modern medicine is not able to provide for, as Dr. Anna Kelly notes here. And as Dr. Anupam also noted, that the problem of pseudoscience partly is that experts in A double up as experts in Z. As far as cupping, hijama, pain medicine, and HIV/AIDS are concerned, I would say this is also the situation there. That's something that works for one particular thing. In this case, cupping is showing benefits in the field of pain medicine. But it is put across as something that is effective in curing HIV/AIDS as well. Now, this is what is harmful. This is what we are talking about. Do you have anything to add here?
Not much. The only thing is that it is okay that something works in A, it should be tried in Z, but there should be an evidence base for it. The
Exactly.
only thing is what these guys are relying on, if all you have a hammer, then everything seems like a nail.
Yes.
So that is yes.
So, pointing to your statement about the need for standardization and the need that such ancient practices need to be held up to RCT standards, and they should provide sufficient evidence. Here is a blog that was published back, I think, in 2013. It's also a very old blog. It was published out of Pakistan in sorry about this. It was published out of Pakistan in a news portal called Tribune. It is very widely read, has a huge following. A lot of people from India also read it. This person who practices as a physical therapist, I believe, she, in this article, raised concerns about how scientific, in modern terms, is the ancient old practice of hijama. Hijama cupping, as we saw in one of the slides that we had seen earlier, is a practice of Unani medicine. So it is also something that would cover under the Department of Ayush, the Ministry of Ayush that the Indian government has. This blog post points out how hijama or cupping may simply be a placebo. People psychologically feel better after doing it. There may not be enough scientific basis for it. This blog writer also says that because it is so popular and so deeply entrenched in culture, and I am saying that this is not only about Pakistan, India, Pakistan have a huge shared culture, a huge shared history. So I don't think that it's this situation is not applicable to at least pockets of India, and in some places of in certain populations of India. It's very hard to say that this is not applicable to them. I'm sure there are many people within India as well who look up to hijama and cupping, and for them the same factors of it being a placebo would apply. And this blogger here says that it's important to call for more evidence in line with modern science, so hijama can be more acceptable. And as of now, she recognizes that it's used more by the population because it is religiously ordained. It's some kind of a sunnah for a lot of people. Again, a riot erupts in the comments section. She is well, the blog author became a target of a lot of commenters here. There are people saying lab tests have been done on hijama, scientific studies are approved by Quranic miracles, doctors are learning this technique. Now, this particular line about doctors learning this technique, as we just now saw with Dr. Anna Kelly's video, is not completely untrue. Yes, they are learning this technique, alternative practitioners are using it, but they are using it for a particular thing. And it has still not become completely standardized. Pain medicine continues to remain an area of active research. A lot of newer therapies are being investigated. And in this process of investigation, people are turning back to certain older folk remedies too. But it is very wrong to say that cupping or hijama is the panache or cure for everything. Here is another comment on the same lines that revelation is above reason. Basically, people will not tolerate anything that goes against a belief that they hold sacred, which is why it is so difficult to rationalize. A religious debate erupted. And yes, I do believe that a lot of comments that are made on social media are reflective of the larger thought process in the masses. So, of course, there are good Samaritans who would speak for science here as well, as this particular commenter notes, that one has to separate out religious affiliations with scientific ones. And one has to understand that at the time when these techniques of hijama, older ancient medical practices, at the time that they were prevalent, this was the only tool that was available to humans. And there is no reason why we should not rely on modern science now. We now have better things available. To quote from the famous Harvard epidemiologist Nancy Krieger's book, human technology in the ancient times was at the human scale. It was at the eye level. We could not look what is going on inside the body. We could not see what's going on inside the body. We did not have modern imaging available. We could not measure things in body serum and fluids and blood like we now can. So it's a huge fallacy to equate older methods with modern medicine because of this huge leap that modern medicine has made. So possible solutions here we have. This is, for those who may not know, a very popular cartoon character popular among India's children. He's a homegrown intelligent detective called Chacha Chaudhary. So I guess in the Indian context, an Indian solution would probably come from someone like Chacha Chaudhary himself. We note here that a major solution for this is the interaction between community members, medical fraternity, and policy. Dr. Manapam, would you like to say something here?
My thought process, like along those lines, I mean, people who trust the fake news, they are looking for, as I told you, that every hammer seems like for a person with hammer, everything seems like a nail.
Right.
For a person who are peddling these fake news, these hammer have a religious sanction. That is the hammer from Thor to bludgeon all the ills.
Right.
So this is how they project it as. So right. That is what tradition. This is the way I communicate with people, and I would like to communicate. The thing is, okay, I don't disrespect tradition. I look for tradition. I get inspired by tradition. I also would like to, look for herbs which have been written in past scriptures, and then I would use them. For example, artesunate, which was built from traditional Chinese medicine only. So to look for better therapy, or to refine it, crystallize it. But that tradition is not a dead one. I would not buy a fossilized tradition. I would buy a living tradition, and that is my idea of a religion and tradition to shape up the medicine. Second, my advice to the people at large and to the peddlers, people who peddle fake news, is that you can have a scientific conversation with the rest of people. Don't get paranoid about it. The point is, the way to have this conversation is science, and that is experiments. If you are making a comment about effectiveness of a therapy, then you will have to prove it in randomized controlled clinical trials. Otherwise, there can be no common consensus. Third is, when you are saying that something works, then I accept it. It might work, right? There might be logic in what people 1,000 years back might be doing. There might be they might work, as we saw that cupping works in pain therapy.
Right.
So you're perfectly open. But then if you are showing it you cannot cite a random journal in PubMed. Show it in randomized controlled clinical trials. If they work, perfectly acceptable. But our mind is open. You give us a therapy. People are willing to try it all times. People have tried even ceftriaxone in cancer, right? You can see the RCTs. The scientists are open, but then you need to have, to let go of your paranoid approach.
Right.
And the community should also be explained the same, that the logic is to be separated from experiments. That is the standards by which the modern medicine is judged, right? And the government should also be explained that when you change a policy, so that can hurt a lot of people downstream if without evidence. Exactly. Or it might, snatch there is an opportunity cost to it. It might snatch the resources which might be going towards the places where you should go. Prove things which work.
No, I think what people by and large need to understand, that a lot of science is based on reproducibility of results, as you say, that is at the core of it. So something works in someone, okay, maybe it did, but that should be reproducible in a lot of other people for it to be evidence enough. That is the basis of modern medicine. Secondly, we should have some kind of understanding of why this is working. We may say, okay, we don't know, that is an acceptable thing, but we should at least be able to look for reasons. And just because I am saying so, hence it works, should not be the approach that should be acceptable to anybody. That is what lies at the heart of this discussion.
Here people invoke the godly sanction.
Yes, exactly.
The revelation. It's from 1,000 years ago. So that is why where n is equal to prejudice of n is equal to 1 is,
Right.
supported by larger religious or traditional facts.
Yes. So we've also seen like any attempt to even counter this claim, or even to say, okay, fine, let us run a trial. It attacks a lot of opposition. It brings on a lot of opposition from people. So
Because we should speak. I mean, that is why I think that militant rationalism or militant atheism is not the way out. The
uh-huh,
first thing you need to tell them, you can't have a Richard Dawkinsy like approach.
right.
You people will troll you. Say that
Right.
you respect tradition. My approach is many of our medicines are derived from herbs only. More than 60% of medicines are from tropical forests.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I'm willing to try it. Give me some more experiments. I'm open. Okay,
Right.
continue medicines which have been proven to work, and then I'm willing to try it. If that works in research, my mind is open. Is yours.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So, the next point is about the need for a national policy for public appreciation of science. That thing you're saying about opening the minds of people to reason, they should let go of their paranoia. They should let go of their prejudices and be open for they should be open for debate. They should be open to letting their deeply held beliefs about one kind of system working, one kind of herb working. They should be open about that being put to test under the standards of modern science. And for that approach, you need to imbibe in people rationalism. There has to be a policy in place to encourage people to think scientifically. It's not only in academia, it's not only at the school level that you need this at the community level. You need it through the very known practice of street plays and street theater. It's a very old tradition in India to have nukkad nataks. Community members get together and put up a short skit of a short play that is enacted in front of the entire village or small town at a common place. And these are effective methods of communicating to people truths. So I think that this is the way forward. It has to be not only a top down approach, it also has to be a bottom up approach. People at the lowermost levels of rungs of literacy, awareness, they should have some idea of what science is. They should be able to have some logical reasoning, and they shouldn't take people on their face value itself. What do you have to say about that?
In my mind, a lot of people are taught, children are taught about science
Right.
in experiments in physics and chemistry. They should also be told about how experiments work in medicine.
Right, exactly.
So, and that is how, if you are teaching first aid, tell people, okay, it has been, what are randomized, just write 5 or 10 para in some class 10th book in India or 12th book, but they should be taught that this is the acceptable standards. Okay, your intuition has to be supported with experiments, just like it does in physics and chemistry.
Right.
I think this point is not emphasized enough, and that is why people are trusting their intuition, which is good. Many times, almost only 50 to 60% of our medicine has conventional experiments behind it. But I would, I'm on firmer ground on it. Okay, so people, when they are especially seeking for critical treatment, they should be looking for the things which are known to work. That is known knowns, as Donald Rumsfeld would put it. Yes.
Right. So on this particular line, Italy has actually put in place something called ASSET. It's called Action Plan on Science in Society-Related Issues and Epidemics. It is drawn out over 48 months, I believe, where intense discussions would take place between community members, stakeholders, and representatives from the scientific community about dispelling myths and communicating to people how science actually works. This was done by Italy in the light of its latest situation, where it faces a lot of contrarian views from doctors and scientists. As we were talking about people of science going rogue, That has been a problem in Italy too. And this is how they have responded, by putting in place a policy where people come to understand what science is. Everybody will take decisions based on what they understand. So it's important that people understand science. Here is a screen grab of a JAMA article by Dr. Rana Merchant, who works at the Penn Medicine Center for Healthcare Innovation in the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. It's titled Protecting the Value of Medical Science in the Age of Social Media and Fake News. Very clearly here, she notes how cancer patients who you rely on complementary medicine will often refuse evidence-based medicine, evidence-based therapies, and have higher mortality. So although it's a very nice way to put it, call it complementary, it is not really complementing modern medicine. It often becomes an either-or situation. It becomes a choice that a lot of people are making between traditional beliefs and between modern medicine. And it is having huge detrimental effects on them. As Dr. Anupam also noted, that people miss the optimum window of treatment. When modern medicine can help them, they are dabbling in alternative therapies. And by the time they actually seek help of a modern medicine practitioner, it's too late for anybody to do anything. The situation becomes unsalvageable. Here, Dr. Merchant notes that it's up to the scientific community now that they must not, that they need to actively defend challenges. They actively need to defend their work against challenges that come up to the validity and interpretation of their research. They need to be proactive to ensure that unsubstantiated messages do not compete with the correct message. She understands that being rude to people in social media debates, online, Twitter, it can decrease a lot of trust in scientific community, in scientific enterprise. But she's very correct in noting that the alternatives seem worse. You have to oppose them. You have to call false claims out. Yes, you do not have to be absolutely militant right away, as Anupam also noted. It's probably also a better way. A gradual approach is probably better because it fits well with, the cultural framework that people are aware of already, that they're familiar with. But falsehoods have to be countered, and they have to be logically countered. Otherwise, this will become a problem that will become just impossible to handle. And a final solution that I offer on a more smaller level that doctors can probably take up is to establish a database like Snopes. Snopes is a fact-finding website. It often is referred to when people are confused by fake news, which dominates the scene today. So a medical Snopes is in order. Doctors' WhatsApp groups can be created to dispel myths. You can create a readily available database of social media compliant messages that can be forwarded immediately in response to a fake medicine video that is being circulated. And I do feel that while punishing fake pseudoscience spreaders, fake YouTubers of the kind that we saw is one way, I also feel that these people have cracked the code of attracting an audience. They certainly know how to attract an audience. A lot of them are good speakers. They do appeal to the masses. I think it is important to engage these people in debate. It's important to bring them on your side and use their target audience network, which is already available, in order to spread the correct message. That is, those are the 3 steps that I think can be done immediately, and work on them can start rather quickly. What do you have to say, Dr. Anupam?
Yes, the conversation is the key. Let's start with conversation. Use the tools of logic, the experiments, and tell them that we are not, pitching a particular branch of medicine, allopathy, but we are pitching for science.
Right.
If because this is every fake news peddler also, swears by science that, okay, we believe in science, because you are mixing it truth. But tell them that this is the experiments. Many therapies don't work in allopathy, and we reject them. So they should be willing to reject their own prejudices as well.
Right. We certainly revisit guidelines, we revisit recommendations, we do that. We keep
sometimes that is used against you. right? That
Yeah.
okay, you go back in every time. So the beauty of scientific process that is used against you, but then they tell you, okay, we are learning. Why don't you prove with this standard of care? Why don't you prove the current, prove your therapy, or tell the practitioners to show it rather than n is equal to 1 experiments.
Exactly. So that brings us to the end of the first episode of this discussion series. Um, Please let us know what you think of this. This was a very wonderful discussion, Dr. Anupam. Thank you so much for putting in the time this morning. I ruined your Sunday morning, I think.
Yeah, thank you as well. Yeah, it was fun talking to you.
All right. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. And I'm ending this meeting now. Bye-bye.